Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. It is February 16, 2020. Third Wednesday or Sunday in February. We're running out of February really quick. It's gone by too quickly, too fast. We have a lot of things to talk about tonight. I want to start off by discussing the demise of Western civilization. I mean, that's the world we live in. Western civilization. It grows out of the Roman Empire, influenced by biblical Christianity. In the days of Jesus, Rome was on the verge of collapse, largely due to the moral decline of both her emperors and her citizens. Christianity's spread, however, was facilitated by Rome's laws of citizenship and the ease of travel from one country to another were you a citizen. Think of the apostles, primarily Saul of Tarsus, also known as Paul. However, by the time the church had spread throughout the Roman Empire and beyond, Germanic barbarians, the Visigoths, the Vandals, the Angles, the Saxons, the Franks, the Ostrogoths, and Lombards had taken turns ravaging the empire. Rome's demise is credited to both that attack and her moral collapse. She was weakened from within before she was conquered from without. And today we are watching that dynamic play out in these waning days of Western civilization. A growing number of young adults, spurred on by their godless teachers, are changing the political / social / religious landscape. A case in point. State Democrats stormed out of the Virginia House chamber last Tuesday after a black pastor condemned abortion and gay marriage. He did this through prayer. His name was Robert M. Grant Jr. He's pastor of the Father's Way Church in Warrenton, Virginia. Addressing the Democrat-controlled House of Delegates there in Virginia with an opening prayer that condemned abortion and condemned gay marriage. Now, I wasn't there, but Media Research Center is reporting this, saying it's true, and it must be true. This pastor's prayer caused members to storm out of the chamber, and for one member to yell, "Is this a prayer or a sermon?" Now the pastor defends his actions by saying the State House belongs to all citizens, and all citizens have a voice. And it's my turn to have that voice, and I'm a pastor. What do you expect from me? If you don't want to hear what a pastor has to say, don't invite a pastor. Simple logic. A cultural collapse always follows a moral collapse. Without moral standards being taught to succeeding generations, right and wrong become more subjective. And as all of this happens, it becomes more difficult to define something we naturally call normal. Consider a recent article in the New York Times by a man named Ross Douthat. He entitles it, "How Do You Define Normal?" He's writing, "The meltdown at the Iowa caucuses," he says, which is an antique system undone by pseudo-innovation and incompetence, was much more emblematic of our age than any great catastrophe or breakthrough. And that's because civilization has entered into decadence in the classic sense of the word. Decadence, defined as a lack of resolution in the face of threats, with hints at exhaustion and finality. A kind of dystopia, an imaginary place or state of mind, where life is extremely bad for a number of reasons, but where the people inside this world don't realize they're living in one. So what's new? Well, the truth of the first decades of the 21st century is that we probably aren't entering a 1930s style crisis for Western liberalism nor hurtling forward toward transhumanism or even extinction. Instead, we're aging comfortably and stuck, cut off from the past, no longer optimistic about the future, spurning both memory and ambition while we await some saving innovation or revelation, growing old unhappily together in the light of tiny screens. Why does this matter? Well, true dystopias are imaginary places. They're just mere states of mind where the condition of life is extremely bad, the result of deprivation, oppression, or terror, and distinguished in part by the fact that many people inside them don't realize they're living there. Why? Well, because human beings are adaptable enough to take even absurd and inhuman premises for granted. Given enough time and going as slowly, we will evolve into something really crazy and not know it. If we feel that elements of our own system are dystopia-ish, from the reality television star in the White House to the addictive surveillance devices always in our hands, from the drugs and suicides to the sterility of our rich cities, that it's possible an outsider would look at our decadence and judge it more severely still. All the while, we go merrily along as though all things are normal. Does any of that sound familiar? But we're not done yet. It's not enough to simply change our ideas about politics and religion. It's not enough to simply rail against the other side. Those new ideas must influence the broader culture if we're going to make the changes that we must make. Consider Pete Buttigieg in Los Angeles. Mayor Pete is running for president of these United States. He's a young man with no real experience outside his relatively small city. He really recently went to Los Angeles to spread his message of change. Did I mention that he's queer? I'm sorry, you can't use that word any longer. He's a transsexual, married to his husband. He's the wife in this marriage. However, the most liberal of Los Angelos are not happy with Mayor Pete. On Friday last, 2 protesters were booted from a fundraiser at the National LGBTQ Center for the Arts for attempting to ask him a question. One of those women said, quote, "I'm definitely proud of the fact that a gay candidate has made it thus far. But it's hard to enjoy or appreciate when his stances are so middle of the road and speak to a predominantly white upper-class audience." What? Someone please explain to me what middle of the road means to this lady. You see, those who feel he's too moderate take issue with Buttigieg not supporting Medicare for all, free college tuition, not to mention his issues with the black community and his ties to billionaire donors. Apparently there are some issues which don't impact the LGBTQ community as a whole, but do impact individuals who are also queer. And they're not all happy with the mayor. Why? Well, because he's not liberal enough. It may be due to the fact that he's rich enough to pay his own way. I don't know. Just saying.